What the hell?
You know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very excited to cover this very last Rideline from DCBTO4. Not only because of it is the last one for now, for the Destined one, but this is also the last Rideline I really have to talk about before I can kind of sidetrack into some of the project that I have been holding on for a long while.
It never ends.
And I think depend on how each of the players prioritize on what they like from their deck, this might be the best Destined one that we have seen at the movement of DBCBTO4.
A bold claim.
And of course, I'm talking about the very cat girl that is also a Vanguard of Chris Rain, and that is Lisciafael. And today we're gonna be talking about what she normally does and how good is she actually is. And I will tell you now, I really like this Rideline.
Shut up, simp.
And for a good reason actually. But before we get to Lisciafael herself, we have to talk about the Rideline. And I'm gonna be covering both grade 1 and the grade 2 of Lisciafael Rideline first, because I feel like overall what these two bring to the whole deck as a whole is very similar for Lisciafael to one of the most commonly used Rideline in the Relical Monasterio, Vilista. But before that, we have to introduce the challengers, who are Coolest Glance Vilia and Mature Lures Lutica. Both has only one skill, where for Vilia, when she's rolled upon by Lutica, you can draw a card, choose a card from your card circle or hand, put it into your soul and choose one of your Vanguard. It gets plus 5k until end of turn. Meanwhile, for Lutica, when rolled upon by Lisciafael grade 3, you can pay Counter Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3, draw a card, and then Soul Charge 1.
I mean, it's alright, like...
Yes, your ears doesn't deceive you. If you try to combine all the profit that you get from the Vilias and Lutica as a Rideline, you notice that they have more or less the same amount of soul economy, hand economy, and power increment profit as Vilista Rideline. And it is actually a consensus in general that people prefer Vilista Rideline over Lisciafael Rideline.
俺はやっぱりこっちで行くぜ。
And there is a few reasons why. For Lisciafael Rideline, you do have to pay additional costs that come in the form of Counter Blast or Energy Blast. And one of the cards that you are soul charging is by soul charge, so RNG is in play here. Meanwhile, for Vilista, yes, you do use a lot more cards, one from the Vilista grade 1 skill and one is the order itself. You are more or less guaranteed to know what are the cards you're putting into soul, so you have a little bit more control of what you can do, and it doesn't cost anything else more than that. So because of that, Vilista is being seen as a much better choice in this Rideline in general. But I do want to counter argue to an extent for those who are just trying out Lisciafael as a Rideline and are not ready to fully invest into Vilista. This is perfectly fine because the Rideline works. It's just that if you want to optimize your Lisciafael build, then I think going into Vilista Rideline might have been a better choice.
It's not that different.
And then we of course have to move on to the grade 3, and I still don't get the moniker, the reason behind the moniker. I roughly understand the law of this unit, but really?
Deal with it!
Anyway, we have Destined 1 of Supremacy, Lisciafael. This unit has 2 skills, where when this unit attack while not boosted, you can Energy Blast 3, put 2 or more red cards into soul, and this unit get 1 drive until end of turn. This unit also get additional 5k until end of turn for each card that was put into soul for the cost of this unit.
Damn, boy, he's sick!
Okay, so if you guys feel the first skill of Lisciafael is underwhelming, it is understandable, as the only benefit that this skill has is the fact that it can be activated regardless of your opponent being at grade 2 or grade 3. And to be honest, getting just a drive and power up to 25k depending on how much resource you're putting in is a little bit underwhelming. But Lisciafael is very similar to Bruce in the way that you can't just see the Vanguard to talk about the skill, you have to see support surrounding Lisciafael as well, as I feel this is where she shines the most. But she herself does have her own issue,
Which is
the amount of resource you have to put it in, as you need at least 2 red cards to put into soul to trigger the skill. This means that Lisciafael is very resource hungry, and if you cannot fulfill those resources that she normally needs for her skill, you are generally in a really bad position. Fortunately enough, her support does alleviate this issue quite a little bit, and thankfully there is only one skill in the entire deck that requires a certain amount of soul count to be hit, and that is her At the end of battle, this unit attack grade 3 or greater unit. If your soul has 6 or more cards, counterblast 1 to stand this unit, and it gets direct mana 2 until end of turn, and until the end of this fight, you get all of your Vanguard with Lisciafael in its name, gets additional 5k and critical. This is active during your opponent turn.
It's actually quite nice.
For the only soul required skill, this is easy to achieve thanks to the fact that you can literally just hit 6 soul in a single skill activation, provided you of course have to populate your field with the skill. And what I like about this divine skill is that it is useful regardless of whether you're going first or second. As if you are going second, this is a really good defensive skill as you can activate early on turn 3 and have Lisciafael at a higher base power for the rest of the game, making guarding game a lot easier even with your opponent trying to pull off a personal right. Meanwhile, if you're going first, having a restand pressure with additional crit is also extremely crucial as well, especially considering that Lisciafael first skill does retain the power until end of turn.
Perfectly balanced.
Simple but very effective. I just don't get what this got to do with the moniker of supremacy.
Who cares?
This is just my guess, but I feel the supremacy in the case of Lisciafael is her synergy with her support, as it is supremely good, and it has to in all fairness.
No. He's got a point.
And of course, we have the unique order that is specific to the Lisciafael herself, Sweetest Sweet Supremacy. Okay, that does look supremely sweet, and I feel Jalak looking at it. So this order can only be played if you have Lisciafael Vanguard and you pay 1 counterblast. If you do, you get Energy Charge 2, choose one of your Vanguard and it gets all of your front row gets 5k until the end of turn.
That doesn't sound so bad.
Simple but effective is the best way for me to describe this particular order, as it does just enough. The only question I have for this order is that why Energy Charge 2? Is it a way to bait us to use Energy Generator? If that's the case, you're not doing a good job, especially considering Lisciafael always use Energy Blast 3. But it is a nice to have card, especially if you are like me, you don't have all the staples from the recall. This is a good replacement. But if you're trying to build the ultimate version of Lisciafael, this might not be it. But what I would consider to be really good, regardless of whether you're trying to go high end or low end, this card is always good. Charmy Present Amphi. This unit has 2 skills where when placed on Vanguard circle and you have a Lisciafael Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, draw a card and plus 5k until end of turn. And when this unit is put to soul from your rear guard circle by ability of your Lisciafael Vanguard, choose one of your Vanguard and it gets additional 5k until end of turn.
Nice.
This card has such a simple skill but so effective because as long as it is placed, you get a free draw and a free power. And this card does trigger additional skill when being used as a cost for Lisciafael triple drive skill. And then we have the usual divine skill booster that we have seen with every single divine skill deck. We have Sway with Swing Balachiel. So I'm not gonna talk about the first part of the skill because the best part of this card is in its second skill. When this unit is put into soul from Vanguard circle by ability of your Lisciafael Vanguard, draw a card, and if you did not counter charge this turn, counter charge 1.
Why, that's very good.
That counter charge condition is a little bit irritating, but the fact that you always guarantee a draw is a huge deal. Because just like Amphi, this means that you are always guaranteeing to recoup the cost of sending these units into soul for Lisciafael skill. And there's something much else to say, but it is simple but so effective. I only wish we can reuse it more often, which I hope that's the additional support that Liscia will get later on. But we still have one more card to go through, and I do have to say, what's with Bushiroad obsession with power increment after restand? As we have Brilliance Restage Abelina. This unit has 2 skills where if you have Lisciafael Vanguard, this unit gets 5k and this does active during your opponent turn. Wait, really? Oh, okay, that is cool, okay.
If the card has more than 3 lines of text, ignore it.
Okay, seriously, when I recorded this, I did not notice that it is active during your opponent turn also, so this is cool. And then auto on Vanguard circle, if you are grade 3 or greater Lisciafael Vanguard attacks and your front row do not have another rear guard, counterblast 1, stand this unit, and if your opponent is grade 3 or greater, this gets 10k until end of turn.
Yeah, boy.
This is a really solid card, as much as it has its own flaw, and that is the fact that the power increment could have been kind of like split through a little bit. Maybe something like you get 5k from just restanding her and get another 5 when your opponent is grade 3 or greater. That could have made this card so much better, but regardless, it is a really solid card. It is a 15k unit on her own, which can turn into 25k unit when you restand with her skill. And the fact that the restand skill doesn't require your opponent to be at grade 3 is a lot of help, considering Lisciafael can flexibly go first or second, which is a good segue to talk about the good point and the bad point of Lisciafael. The good point of Lisciafael is that it can hit a really high ceiling number very quickly and instantaneously, provided you put the resource into it, and the support around her really encourage you to do that in a good way. On top of that, the divine skill of Liscia is also pretty damn solid, as it does help you to play around defensively while still having essentially a permanent pressure for the rest of the game. And last but not least, Liscia also is a little bit like Fennel, where these two decks can essentially utilize the holy trinity of the generic support in Lyrical Monasterio. Namely Eureka, Straya, and Boucher Blanc. These three cards are so powerful, and if any of the Lyrical deck are able to utilize all three of these cards effectively, you essentially cover most of your bases. You have Eureka for bouncing, you have Straya for searching and draw power, and last but not least, Boucher Blanc for just simply buff your entire front row.
It was perfect. Perfect.
But it is not all sunshine and rainbows for Lisciafael, because she does have some issue. And to be fair, these issues are kind of correlated to one another, because it is because of this first issue that causes the second issue, which also lead to a minor nitpick I have with the deck as well. So what is that issue? I already touched upon it earlier, and that is commitment. Lisciafael requires a lot of regard to activate her skill, like 2 is already quite a substantial amount, and to do it every turn, it can wall off your hand very quickly, especially if you are unlucky. But fortunately enough, the support does cancel out that issue for her to an extent, provided you drew into them. And that leads for me to a second point that I want to talk about, and that is the amount of resource you have to use. Yes, you do have an excessive amount of soul, which is my nitpick, but you also use Ashmart, Counter Blast, and Energy Blast, depend on what are the cards that you put in your deck. So overall, Lisciafael is surprisingly heavy in resource, despite she need mostly energy and occasional counter blast. But that's Lisciafael. Just like the most destined one that was released in this booster, all of them has a good base, but all of them seems to missing like this je ne sais quoi that I got a feeling will be coming in very soon in the form of the support in DCBT05. Just speculating, but we are not sure about that yet. But do leave in the comments below on what you guys think about Lisciafael. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Take care of yourself, and don't forget to clap that sub and become a member for some cool perks. And this is Mac Mekane signing out.